Well, hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here with Eric Herman at Florida State University, and he is the author of this new book called Research Talks, Motivating Acquisition-Centered Classroom. So Eric, um, who is my partner in crime in teaching LGTC 5010 at the University of Colorado's teaching language with technology program. It used to be called Elevate, and that's what I always remember it as. So I don't know if I actually get the real title correct. So please, Edwige, please forgive me if I am not right on that. But Eric and I teach this class and have been teaching it for the last 3 summers. We might be taking the summer off this coming summer, so please don't get your hopes up on that. But that's how we know each other. And when I received my copy of the book, I got into it right away, and I think it's a great addition to a teacher's workspace. They should be working with this, not just putting it up on their shelf and showing it off, but actually getting into it. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what? Give me maybe a quote that we haven't gotten in this actual book, so we can get a little bonus material from this interview. And by the way, I'm sorry, I haven't even let you talk yet. So say hi, Eric.
Hi guys. Thanks, Mark, for doing this with me. But yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned or not, the course we teach in the summer is an SLA and course specifically, targeting language teachers. So it's a lot of even the commenting and the quote selection from this book was informed by actually experiences we had over the 3 summers. So, but yeah, the book is composed of quotes organized into 30 weeks of quotes. And as you asked for one that's not not currently in the book, and there is one, in fact, and that there's a quote that it should have made it in, and it escaped me in my files on my computer. As many more could have made it into this book. But this particular quote is from SLA researcher Florence Miles. She also is one of the co-authors of the Second Language Learning Theories Intro to SLA book. And actually, I do quote maybe twice from that book throughout the Research Talks book. And so this quote actually came from her an article. She was doing an overview of second language acquisition and talked a bit about teaching implications as well. And it came from a 2002 publication, an online publication. And she wrote, and I have it here, "We all know that both speed of learning and range of outcomes are highly variable from learner to learner. Some do much better, much more quickly than others." And so the point of this book and how it could be used one way is then they digest one of the quote per day, reflect on it, think about it, and basically be trying to answer what it means for you, a classroom teacher, and for your students, the classroom learners.
So on that particular quote, then, it's all about rate and variability and so forth. And it does remind me of L1 acquirers, that they also have a great amount of variability. Is what else can we think about doing with that quote, other than just sort of understanding what the author is trying to do with that quote, to say with that quote? How does that affect us? How might it affect us as teachers?
Yeah, and I think it's a good point to first reflect on, the parallel with first language acquisition, in that you would never expect all 2-year-olds to know the same words and be at the same point in their path of acquisition, know the same sounds, have the same already knowledge of what words go in which order. They'd be at different places at age 2, at age 2.5, at all ages if you looked at learners, right? And so that there is a variability to the rate in first language, and as there is in second. And this quote is summing up research that's existed for a long time, decades, since the very beginning of the field of second language acquisition. there's been research on how learners develop, and which has included the rate at which they develop. And so the next step is then if we take that seriously in our classrooms, what does that mean then? Well, what it's going to mean is that you're going to have learners at different places. They're going to end up with all over the place, and that's inevitable. It's not something that's going to be controllable. They're going to be different places. So then, assuming you want to be a communicative language teacher, how do you communicate with a group of learners that are at different places in their development? As well as how would you then assess them if they're all at different places? And the hairier question is then, how do you grade them? So I'm going to ask those questions, and I'm not going to give you all the answers, but the point is largely to then get you thinking about these things.
And if I could actually make a personal comment on what you just said, I have been trained, I guess, in a tradition that says all Americans need to be as proficient in a second language, as they possibly can. And there's a democracy issue involved here. And so I don't like the fact that we're flailing in developing second language learners. And I think most language teachers who read your book would also feel a little bit embarrassed by where America is. So,
And I think, I mean, the book has it in the title. The focus of this book is on acquisition, specifically acquisition-centered classrooms. So where you have the development of this implicit, this unconscious language system, like your first language. If you have that as your goal of developing that in the second language, then that's what second language acquisition, the field focuses on, developing that system. So if you have acquisition as your goal, then this book is, this is going to be informative. And really it is that system that underlies proficiency. So when you say that you're proficiency based or want to be proficiency based, and maybe not, like as you say, more and not happy with the current outcomes we're getting, then there are certain changes in this book. At least gives you the research support underlying those changes you might want to make in your classroom.
great. And Eric, I promise you that I know you've got a lot to do tonight, so we're going to keep this interview fairly short. But one other question: what if I pick up your book, love it, but also say to myself, I'm in a situation where I really can't, I know I can't do much in my classroom because I am I'm obligated to give the departmental exam. The departmental exam is not very proficiency oriented and not very communicative oriented. And I don't necessarily have a good relationship created with my colleagues to be able to break through to maybe do some more experiments in pedagogy. What can you say to that person?
And that person is probably a lot of people, right? Find themselves in that situation. And ideally, right, everybody in the department is reading this book. So ideally we get everyone in the field on the same page, that there's some basic knowledge about language acquisition that we all share. And then ideally we all have as a goal to develop that type of knowledge that underlies proficiency. Now, if your department's not there, or you're one, maybe not all that are reading and trying to learn from this book and thinking about changes and want to make them, you're in a difficult situation, I think. And I think you have to be, an educator and go beyond educating your own students. But then those around you who, stakeholders need to know some of this information. And this book, by dividing it up into, quotes like this, is intended to be something short and quick you can send to someone to get them to defend what you're doing, to get them thinking. So first thing I think is you've got to create some type of find a way to share the information, and that's not there's a science probably to that as well about how you actually share, to get them not to just get defensive or see threatened by something, and if they're not wanting of this information. I learned that the hard way. It's you have to be careful how you share, and I think the first thing is creating those relationships with your colleagues, and then if you can have as part of regular meeting time discussion, um, and in place already norms for how you're going to have dialogue about this, so that you don't have to feel scared about voicing something that may not, it may go against what others might be thinking. So there has to be a way to respectfully discuss it and to seriously consider the information. Um, so that's one. And if the other the other main line of action you could take is to adopt proficiency assessments yourself, um, with or without your colleagues. Still do what you're required to do. But if you also have these, and they can be pre and post type testing, these more proficiency oriented tests, then you have something else to show what your learners actually, what they're getting out of your class. And that can be in addition to something that perhaps is more traditional, and I'm meaning more like get the right ending on the verb type test. And so at the end, when you get to evaluated, you can always show these two things. These are what my learners can do on a written, verb ending test, and this is what they can do when they're trying to communicate. And I think most people care more about this other one, what they can communicate. And so I feel like there is a power to that. And if you can, maybe you're ready, maybe your department's ready already to start thinking about adopting those types of tests, whether in addition to the traditional or in replacement. But I think you have to, again, be an advocate for those types of assessments. And once that type of thing becomes the norm and has been adopted, you've opened up a lot more freedom then for what you can do in the classroom to actually develop proficiency, and won't feel as beholden to trying to do two things, foot in each door. I have to develop them for this type of test, but I also care more about their ability to do these things. For a while, you may have to be trying to do both until you have, been an advocate and shared, and everyone's moving to a similar page.
So what I hear you saying is that it's really a process towards innovation. It's not a one step overnight sort of binary change, right? From one to the other, from black to white, white to black, or whatever.
I wish it were.
Yeah.
In my mind, everyone would read it instantly, go, "Yes, that's what we need to do." But no, the actual process of change it can be more gradual. People are in different places and are going to integrate this own knowledge with their own current knowledge. So some people, again, are in different places as well. We'll get something different out of the book, but hopefully there's something for everyone. And there's many different topics discussed and quotes from different quotes for everyone, on assessment and on input and output and development. So there's a lot there, and I can default basically to the experts, and I include my own comments on them, but I can always go back to what has been said, and there are certain things about acquisition that are well established. And so another takeaway you get is, all these people are basically saying the same thing.
Well, despite all of that, I think this is a unique book, and it's an innovative book, and it's setting a new precedent. I think it's a great addition to what could become a canon for teachers to develop their abilities and their thought processes about what is actually happening in learners' heads. So
thank you. May that come true.
yeah. So thank you so much, and thank you for the time for this interview.
Thank you.